I want to welcome you all. My name is Sally Deckard, and I am a faculty support consultant at Ashford. And I will be hosting this session, The Value of Guest Interviews via YouTube in the Asynchronous Online Classroom with Dr. Candy Rice and Dr. Tim Rice. Your microphones should be muted for this presentation, but I encourage you to post questions in this chat and I'll be taking a look at them and we can address them at the end. Also, please keep your eye on the chat for a link to a helpful session feedback survey, comma was in the wrong place, and a link to download a certificate of attendance for the conference. And now I am very pleased to turn the mic over to the Doctors Rice.
Thank you, Sally. Looks like I am not able to share my screen.
Well, let me make you a co-host, Dr. Rice. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I told you I'm, there we go. And 1 second. Okay. There we go. We should be good to go now.
Okay. All right. And let me see here. Sorry, guys. There we go. Okay. Tim, are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay, go.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. And our apologies for the technical difficulties, but we are here now. My name is Tim Rice, and I'm with my lovely wife, Candy. And we're going to be talking a little bit today about the value of guest interviews via YouTube in the asynchronous online classroom. Just a little bit about us. Candy and I have been married for a little over 25 years, and she earned her doctoral degree at the University of Rockies. We both live in West Fargo, North Dakota. I've been with a faculty member with the University of Rockies in Ashford since 2010, and I am the faculty lead of the Doctor of Psychology program here at Ashford, and have extensive experience in sport and higher education.
And as Tim mentioned, we now live in Fargo. We've lived together in 10 different US states, and we had the great fortune to spend almost a year working and living in Ireland a few years ago. I'm presently an adjunct faculty member online for Castleton University in Vermont and also Spring Hill College in Alabama. And this is my second year of doing that, where I presently teach sport marketing, which is one of the professional experiences I've had in my lifetime. But I have an MBA and also a PhD in organizational leadership. Like Tim, I've spent most of my adult life working in higher ed and also in entrepreneurship, having started 4 or 5 businesses over the course of time. So our topic today is about this a new approach to online asynchronous learning, where we're using recorded video interviews with guest speakers.
Okay, so the goals of our presentation today, we have 6. And we'll go real quickly through them. Really want to kind of talk a little bit about the approach of using the technology and how we did it. We're going to have a discussion basically looking at the existing literature out there regarding use of guest speakers in the classroom. We're also going to talk a little bit about soliciting the content experts for these interviews and also how they were produced. We're going to discuss some of the learner feedback that we received in the discussion boards. And then we will also talk a little bit about the impact of this experience on the guest speakers, the people that are in the interviews, as well as myself and Candy. So the new approach that we're talking about, this is something that as a longtime online faculty member, it's something I've always wanted to kind of add to my classroom, and that is having interviews with professionals in the field and using YouTube and Zoom to do that, and using my YouTube channel. If you look at the pictures here, these are just a couple of pictures from my YouTube channel of some of the videos and some of our presenters. Our goal was really to utilize this approach to actually help engage our students more and help them network. So as far as the process of soliciting content experts, for anyone that knows me, I've got a decent network. I've been involved in sport for over 30 years. And so I've been able to connect with a lot of people in the business, both people that have mentored me, as well as people who I have mentored. And what we did basically was set up time on Zoom to have the interview. And then I uploaded them into, and I utilized a specific set of questions to interview these people that were our speakers or interviewees. And then I uploaded them to my YouTube channel, and boom, there you have it. And we could put them into the classroom.
So in preparation for this project, we did a brief review of literature that talks, or to see if there was anything that talked about it out there. And here's a bit of what we found. A study from 2006 found that the use of guest lectures does give students the opportunity to link theory with practice, which we know is a big deal, and that was of major importance to us when we were designing our courses and choosing to use guest speaker interviews. Another study by Rayner and Allen found that speaker interviews were beneficial in terms of improving the students' understanding of course content, and again, helping connect theory with practice. The students also found the interviews to be engaging, which is a big thing these days, right? And that they appreciated the knowledge and the range of experiences that were shared by the guest speakers. And this information was vital in our consideration as we chose to pursue this project. Another study by Robinson a few years ago just found that the use of video conferencing tools such as Zoom does eliminate the need for a guest speaker to be physically present in the classroom, and that students are looking to explore their careers in the classroom, and that starts in part with experiential learning. And that's something that the guest speakers Tim interviewed was, they shared pretty heavily around that factor, how much doing helped them to learn. And then the third finding that we thought was interesting was that guest speakers make the learning engaging and more relevant. And these findings then showed, again, the importance of having outside speakers in the online classroom. Another study by Hall in 2018 found that the use of the internet provided a lot more opportunities to bring in speakers who were from around the country and even around the world. And we found that to be true in our project as well, in that speakers that Tim interviewed live across the country and also in parts of Europe and Ireland in particular. And we saw that an observation from learner responses in their discussions after watching video interviews was that they had a need to put their academic knowledge to use in a practical way. And this aligned with the Rayner and Allen study that found that it ought to be in the best interest of the industry and of those who are preparing to enter the industry, that there is a strong link between what is being taught in the classroom and what people in the field are actually doing for the work. We also found, in addition to that learner responses are also aligned with the study by Butler and von Weilig, which found that guest lecturers from the field can indeed provide effective real-life learning for students. So it does actually give them experiential learning. So one of the most important reasons we chose to pursue this project was we were both looking for ways to add value to our courses. We wanted to help it be more practical for our students and share with them the range of experience by people who are doing the work presently or have done it. And so we saw there were a lot of positive student comments made. They did benefit from learning, particularly from females working in this field. It's typically a male-oriented field, male-dominated field, excuse me. And that having the opportunity to network with all the speakers was a huge benefit to them. And what these showed us was that we were aligned with what the Roger Ratnam and Campbell study found in 2013. Lastly, much like the findings again from the Rayner and Allen study, we found that learners in the classes conveyed that experience of learning through watching a recorded guest speaker interview was actually indeed a positive experience in their learning.
Okay, as far as learner feedback is concerned, we found 6 trends that came from comments in the discussion boards after watching the videos. Really fascinating stuff here. 6 things: relationships and networking, hard work and dedication, internships and volunteering, being open-minded, communication, and lastly, mentoring. So here's some responses. There are a lot more than this, and we obviously don't have a lot of time to share a ton of this information, so we're going to give you the highlights, okay? Here are some responses from learners regarding relationships and networking. One of the speakers basically offered this, at least according to one of the learners. He said something along the lines of networking can open doors that otherwise would not have been available. Another aspect pertaining to networking from a learner, networking is very important, even if it is a small one, because it may help you climb the career ladder later in life. Some more comments regarding relationships and networking. And this first one is basically a student talking about watching a video from a female executive director of a collegiate athletic conference in the Great Lakes region of the United States, and this speaker actually talked about how women before her were a huge influence on her, and that it made a huge difference in terms of the relationship and how she was able to climb the ladder to that spot in that role. Another thing that another speaker talked about that was talked about here by one of the students, she talks on the importance of getting to know those who are working with you so they know you. So it's one thing to actually work with somebody. It's actually another thing to know them. And then lastly, in this area, a student said to me, I took it as wherever you can get experience, even if it is not exactly in the field you want, just do it. Most of our speakers came from very hard working environments, starting from the bottom and climbing the ladder up. The next area, hard work and dedication. Here are some of the responses. And this is one of the quotes from one of our speakers that a learner talked about. The most interesting thing I found from this video was a quote, to get what others don't, you have to do what others won't. And this was something that they were really thought was important as far as working hard. Another comment from a student talks about how one of the speakers heard from or talked about his expectation in terms of who they hire, accepting people who are dedicated and show hard work as well as have integrity and trustworthiness. Some more comments here. Being collaborative, dedicated, and put your personal ego aside. Another part, in the sport industry, you always start at the bottom and must work your way up. And then lastly, in this, this trend here, characteristics like the ones that you read there about work ethic, being able to adapt, learn on the go, trying new things. All these areas are things that you can show throughout your experience that's not even through or on a resume. So it's incredibly important for anyone that's in a situation where they're interning or whatever, that they get a chance to share that. Internships and volunteering. Here's some learner responses. They learned how it is important to apply what they've learned in the classroom to actually doing it when they go to do an internship. Another learner talked about one of the female guest speakers, and she did the jobs no one else really enjoyed doing, but could show her dedication and work ethic through that time to get to where she is today. Another comment, he thought he wanted one career path, but discovered a love for being in the sport industry through an internship, through volunteering. Also, staying up to date in ever-changing landscape of this field through internships and volunteering. That's another comment from one of our learners. Lastly, how someone doing an internship shouldn't be afraid of asking questions, because that is a great way for them to learn. Being open-minded, another trend. Keeping your options open and getting along and helping anyone you could, because you never know how many doors it could open for you down the future. Also, being in the right place at the right time allows you to be open to opportunities that wouldn't or couldn't happen if you were not around. And then our last comments here in this area, keeping your eyes open and mindsets broaden, and always being on the job and acting in a professional manner, because you never know where you might get business from. And what that statement means basically is an opportunity to be in the sport management industry. And then lastly, being ready to go with the flow and adapt. This business, and Candy and I can attest to this because we've been in it for many years, you have to be willing to adapt. And this is something that a student learner learned from one of our presenters. Communication. Here are just a couple of things from learners. Consistency, communication skills, and other qualities are great things to have for not only this job, but for any job you do. Having good communication, but being curious, collaborative, consistent, and putting your ego aside. Another factor pertaining to communication. Being able to write well and work hard while being able to communicate with people. As online students do struggle at times with writing, it is something that I thought was really critical for our students to see that it matters how you communicate, both written and verbally. And then as far as a resume being important, the mindset is the most important. And how really the biggest thing is, can a person communicate and are they a hard worker? And then our last trend from the student responses, mentoring. The importance of mentoring and climbing a ladder to accomplish future goals, very critical in what they learned. Also, that mentors can help motivate them to keep moving forward, especially for any reason they are feeling down or unmotivated. Having the right person to guide you and show you ropes, really important, whether you're in sport or you're finishing a doctoral degree, whatever it is, it's incredibly important to have the right person to mentor you.
So the next category of feedback is, of course, from the guest speakers themselves. And the folks that Tim interviewed were asked to provide feedback a few weeks after they recorded their interviews with him. And Tim asked them to answer these 3 questions. What was your experience of being interviewed? How did you think your experience in the sport field can influence others in the classroom setting? And finally, do you wish you had had these kinds of learning experiences in your early years when you were thinking about pursuing a career in sport? And here are some of the comments that those guest speakers gave back.
Yes, here are just a couple, okay? Regarding question 1, I was really proud to actually get this feedback because it meant a lot to me that they felt that I was prepared and that I had a great interest in my course and the welfare of my students. Also, that I put them at ease immediately and asked questions that were really thought-provoking questions and well-researched questions. Some more regarding that, felt like a conversation with a friend, not a formal interview. Also, that they were glad to hopefully provide good insights for the students and they would do it again in a heartbeat. And that they felt like they were speaking with a mentor friend rather than an interview. And I want to really quickly elaborate on that. It's not just about the connection between the students and the speakers. It's also the connection between the faculty member, me, and the speakers. On the next question, here's just, I think that this person on the first bullet here, the first speaker, talks about all their different varied experience. And this person's actually been involved in these things for 40 plus years in Ireland. And he thinks that his broad experience can help others in a sport management classroom setting, which they did. Also, in the second bullet, trying to help others hit the ground running is something that person tries to do all the time. And providing real life experience certainly makes a difference in talking through it. As far as the actual first one here, being able to share what to do and what not to do is really helpful for students. I've been in Kenny and I have been doing this for a long, long time. We've made mistakes, but we can also share with others what we could have done better. And that's what they did here too. And then also allowing students to experience your travels through past successes and challenges to help paint a picture for their future journey. And then lastly on this question, sharing that practical experience can help others conceptualize the academic experience. In the online setting, we teach them in the books and in discussion boards and in papers, right? But we are providing them with an opportunity to have someone that they can actually learn from that's outside of the classroom. And what a huge advantage that was for us. Last question. This first one was funny from one of our speakers. Without question, it would have been a massive help as I had to wing it in those days. This is somebody who did this for 40 years, okay? And then the other one was regarding one of our female speakers and her experience in Ireland not having a lot of female role models, and that she really wants to be that, and she wants to inspire others that way. And then lastly, one of the speakers said, I was very naive coming out of college. I had no idea what working in sports really meant. And then the more current professionals in the field can pour into the empty but thirsty vessels of the students, the more they will grow. And then the last statement, I think it's always helpful to speak with people in the field to learn what they experience and what they might do differently. So very good information.
Sorry, Tim, I moved too fast there. So the third category feedback then is from ourselves as instructors. And I can say that in my undergraduate sports promotions class, I was looking for some more creative kinds of assignments beyond the discussion board and paper, typical things. So I chose to use a recorded guest speaker interview that Tim had created, but set it up as a reflection board. And then I asked my students to watch the video and answer some questions that I set up for them ahead of time, but to provide the answers to their questions in a video response, not in a written response. And my students really seem to like this kind of assignment a lot more than the regular discussion board or paper, as they showed me through their expressions and enthusiasm in their video responses. It gave them a chance to verbalize what they had learned rather than just having to rely on their writing ability to do so. I can envision using this, expanding the use of these interviews further in my classes by adding the opportunity to have a synchronous question and answer Zoom call with the guest speaker who is in the video that they watch. And that I think could give them a great additional opportunity to bring their own questions to it and to ask them of that person. Tim, what was your feedback?
Well, I think in as far as my experience, I had 6 reflection discussion boards in an undergraduate sport governance class, a sport management class, and I provided specific questions to my students to answer. Really trying to find out what they learned, what they got from it, how the interview could impact their future. And as we noted within the responses earlier, and again, that's just a small sampling, we had many more, but those trends popped up, those 6 trends, and that revealed that, they really got a lot from the interviews. And the one thing that I thought was really important for this project was to have speakers that weren't just going to come and speak, but not be accessible to our students. So having email addresses or asking our speakers if they would be willing to provide their email addresses so they could, have students actually reach out to them. They were just fine with that. And that provided a great networking opportunity. We had people from all different areas of sports psychology, higher education sport management, international sport management. And, they have those people now they can reach out to because they said, hey, we watched the video that you did with Dr. Tim Rice. And that was a connection for him.
So in conclusion, we found that the information that came back to us from feedback from the learners, the guest speakers, and our own experience in utilizing these videos shows the impact of this new approach. It actually does make online education more enjoyable for everybody involved. We also found that these videos do fill a major need in giving our students more practical learning experience, especially in the asynchronous online classroom. And that these students these experiences can lead to students who are more engaged in their own learning experience. So we want to just show you our references here real quickly before we're finished. And then we would like to take a few minutes and ask if you have any questions. And thank you for your time in advance. But if there are any questions, we'd be happy to answer them now.
Don't be shy.
You can either, we're not a huge group, so you could speak out or post it in the chat.
Well, and while you're coming up with questions, I think one of the things that could be very helpful for you all to understand is that, Candy and I both are products of non-traditional education at the higher education level. And to be able to have gone through our experience, mine was a little different than Candy's, but because mine was more before the online, all this technology came about, really. But to have another way to do it, if you're a faculty member and you're watching today, think about how this can impact your classroom. It doesn't have to be something that's difficult, you know, and if anybody has questions that you want to ask, and Candy has our email addresses on the next slide. You can reach out to any of us, either one of us. Our big thing is to help you all be able to utilize this valuable technology. If you are interested in getting some of the, finding out about my YouTube channel with these videos, feel free to reach out. I can give you that information. But Ken, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
No, really just to say that I was surprised at how much my students really benefited from it, because it was my first time using these interviews. Of course, I'd had the bonus of watching Tim, observing his use of them in classrooms. And so I figured that it would be beneficial for my students as well. And it turns out, in actuality, it really has been. And I can see ways of using this more frequently. And like I mentioned earlier, expanding the use of it to even further give my students a more practical learning experience.
Yeah. And just a comment on some of the chat that has come in, or statements that have come in. One of the things, and Michael Robinson commented about how it creates engagement and allows students to make personal connections. I think that that's so incredibly important in the online classroom. And believe me, as someone who has taught in the online classroom for 12 years, one of the things I've always wanted to do is have more connection with my students. Candy has great connection with her students at Castleton and at Spring Hill College. And I think it all boils down to actually wanting to have that connection. And I think that, Jody, Dr. Hermerta talks about here about her experience of inviting guest lecturers into her face-to-face classes. I think being able to do this in an online setting is something that you can do. And actually, you can do it in a YouTube setting. You can do it through Zoom. I've done several conversations with people, not only here in the United States, but in Europe, Eastern Europe, and in Ireland recently. And in Z, just to make a comment, as far as being a student at Ashford and Rocky since 2007, I think that it's one thing about being proactive as an educator, right? And I think that Candy and I, and not to do this, but I think that we've done a pretty good job on that. And we've seen how important it is for the learning of our student, or really the development of our students. And, let me see if I've got any other ones here.
Dr. Hermerta says we're all going to meet in Ireland.
Yes, that would be a good place to meet.
Yes, let's do.
Yeah, I have yet to go.
Well, we appreciate everybody being here and listening. And again, if you have questions, feel free to reach out to Candy or I. We are glad to be resources. Our goal is to hold the ladder for others to climb to places that they could never think possible.
I just want to thank you two so much. It's been such a joy. And we found out when we met earlier that Dr. Candy Rice and I, at a different time, worked at the same teeny tiny little liberal arts college in Northeastern Ohio. And we had lots in common. But thank you so much for all of you in attendance. Thank you, Dr. Tim and Dr. Candy. And please take just a minute to fill out the survey if you haven't, and just have a lovely day. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sally. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.